Begin the current Daf from Mesech Kesuvos Daf Mem Beis. We begin on the bottom of Memal Mem Beis. 10 lines up at the bottom of the Yommi. We begin the next parak, fourth parak, Mesech Kesuvos parak Narish and the Spatata, where we continue the theme of the previous parak Ilanairis, which discussed the halachas, oins, and mavata. And here we continue on that theme regarding the differences in halacha and intricacies of these halachas of oins and mavata. It just corresponds because of the Cheskel turning to Daf Yomi, joining with today's Daf. Before Shlomo for Pinchas, Maya, and Laya, Shlomo Bekuru. Some of these we're going to discuss in today's Daf are cases in which the knas of Oinus and Mafat is collected either by her father, her brothers, or herself. Those are three different possibilities. Our Mishnah begins the parak with Oinus and Mafata that they're required to compensate with Tashlum of knas, that's the biblical penalty, Boish is the shame, Pagam the deficiency, and the Nusa is also compensated with Tsar, with pain. The Mishnah tells the Av Zakah b'schus bita nara. And the girl's already 12 years old, but before 6 months have elapsed, so he collects all her benefits: knas, baishis, pekam, mitzias. If she finds something like her earnings, all that shvach goes to the father. However, eno the meish schus bita l'benoi, the eno the meish knas, about the two related concepts. A person cannot bequeath to his sons the rights he has in his order. If it's a knas, these are things that are not mammon, it's not actual monetary items. One cannot give that over in Yerusha. That a father does not have rights in his daughter when she's begins, when she's, so to speak, 12 and a half, he loses his rights in his daughter. Another important concept is Moedu Knas Pata, which we've been mentioning in these dafim. If someone admits to a penalty, he's exempt from the liability. Why? That would be interesting. Isn't he admitting his guilt? Because the Torah tells us regarding Kefil Yashin Elihim Yisham Shtam Le'eu. If the courts find him liable, they incriminate him, then he has to pay double to his friend. That's only if the Elihim does the Yashin. But if he incriminates himself, he's actually going to be exempt. Now, the Gemara differentiates an important chilik between Kodim Modbedin and La'achar Modbedin. Once there's a court case, then it becomes monetary. And hence, there's going to be a difference if you admit before or after, because after it's not really knas anymore. It already was, so to speak, nizgashin, and into there's a monetary liability, and then there's going to be a difference in criminal that you would be liable. Another important halacha is that kayfa mamim b'shvua. Someone swears falsely to deny a monetary obligation, and then hoidi is subsequently admits. The Torah tells you chayiv b'keren, obviously the principle that you really owed, and the chaymish an added fifth, and v'ashim and a carbon ashim, which is called a carbon shvua. So that would begin the new parak Revi, the bottom of the Malva Beis, the new Mishnah. This is the Mishnah Narish and Spatata, which is the title of the parak. Naira that was seduced. So Baishasa, her shame, which obviously the shame for what was done. Upagma, and now that there's a begam, as we said in the previous parak, regarding that she's as a shefcha would be sold for less. Uknasa, which the Torah says is a penalty for the person who seduced this girl. Shalavia, these three monetary payments, they go to the father. Vahatsar, regarding the pain, that also is for the father, B'tfusa, when she was an anusa, which that's just the terminology of the pasuk, with tafsa b'shachim, if he grabs her and he lays with her, in the Ram Chabez, so he used the pasuk terminology. But if she was forced, then there's also pain, as we also elaborated that in the previous parak, that goes to the father. Now, the Mishnah continues as follows. It gets a little bit more complicated. What happens if, and we all know life is a process, let's say they had a court case, before the father didn't die. So, if the father didn't die yet by the time the court case happened, like we just said, like a normal case, it goes to the father. But what happens if subsequently, after the court case, the father dies, and the money wasn't paid up yet? Says the Mishnah, it doesn't make a difference. It's still the father's, because he won the court case against this rapist or whoever it was. So, who yarshins the father? Are the brothers get it. What happens if he speak bedin? What happens is the story happened and they got all the sordid details and they didn't get a chance to take him to court at Shemei Sa'av. The father from Hardik, whatever it is, he passed away. So here the halach is a rein shal atzma. It actually goes to the girl herself. Why? As Rashi explains. Since there was no Amida Medinya, there was no court case, this is not quote-unquote mummin, it's not monies to bequeath to your sons. So Gemara tells us later on, a person cannot bequeath to his son a right that the Torah gave him in his daughter, which we learn from Pesukim. So she is the one holding the bag. She's the one that gets that schus to collect what was really her rights. It's just the Torah gave the father those rights. The father wasn't around, and the sons don't yarshin rights, they yarshin money. After court case, it's really money. The court says you owe him 1,000. Up until that, it's not really a substantive monetary liability. It's just a right that he has in his daughter, and therefore she's going to get it herself. Now Taisa says, how do we understand that? I understand the knas she gets, but Baisha Begam, which is mammon, that should go to the brothers. So Taisa says maybe we learned it out from the Psukim we mentioned and previously on Daf Lamed Ches that we learned out the pasuk compares Baisha Begam to the knas, and therefore just like the knas is going to go to herself, so to Baisha Begam, but really that should be mammon, that should really be Yerusha to the brothers. Similarly, just like we said regarding the father's death, as this applies to before or after Hamad Badin, similarly, Badin, let's say she had the court case, Achale Bagra, before she turned 12 and a half. Okay, Hadin Shalab goes to the father, because again, the father has these rights and his daughter that's a Nara. Mesa'av, what happens if the father dies after the court case, if the court case was when she was a Nara? So we don't care whether she became a Begeris before he died or whether she did not become a Begeris. That's going to go to the brothers, because once the father already was there at the court case, the father he merited it, he got it. Now this money's owed to him, and now his sons are going to inherit that. But lo yispeak alam and bedin, let's say the father didn't get a chance to take the seducer to court. And now his daughter took time, and now she's like, oh, it's already 6 months after became an Adam, begettes. Then it goes to herself, because she, in either one of these cases, whether the first case the father died, or in the second case when she becomes a begettes, she is no more in his domain. So by the time you get to the court case, which is the rights over here, the father has no schus in his daughter. This schus shetavil is not at the moment of the crime. It's when the court case happens, he gets the rights of the payments. You're not a baldava, either you're dead, or because she's a begettes, and therefore it's going to go to herself. Now, Shimon, however, he disagrees on one point. He says that even though there was a court case, if she didn't get a chance to collect the money until the father died, so what Rabbi Shimon is holding is that it's actually not considered the father's money to bequeath it to his sons, not like the Tanakh says, oh, as long as the court case. No, he says until it reaches the hands of the father, as the Gemara is going to learn out the reasons. So since the father died before collections, Harein Shalasma, it's going to go to herself. So it's not enough to Hamad Bedin to make it the father to be Yorush Labanov. No, it has to be he actually collected, he got the payment, the payout. He got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he got the cash. Then he dies, then it'll go to the sons. But if he didn't collect it yet, even though he was there for the court case, it's going to go to the daughter. Now, however, what everyone does agree, as we continue to have in Bezim and Aleph, the girl's earnings that she made when the father was still alive. When she finds a lost object, even though she didn't collect, for example, the wages of her employment, if Mesav, the father dies, that, however, will go to the brothers. And the reason for that is because the moment it comes to the world, this earnings, the father already merits it. Because it's not similar to Knas, which is not considered mammon until you have a court case and they testify against him. Now Rashi says something very important. Why is that? What's the difference between Knas and mammon? Because by Knas, if you're moided by Knas, you're pater. So until you actually have the court case and there's witnesses who testify and they incriminate him, if he beats them to it, no one could collect him. He's no mammon over here. Because he can be moided by Knas and become pater. So there's no money's owed over here. When you take him to court, you got witnesses to get him incriminated first. Then there's mammon. So until Hamad Bedin, the father has nothing. In contrast, by Maisiyadaha, by her earnings, the moment she worked there at the factory, that's already monies that are owed. There's no getting off the hook from those money, and that goes straight to the father.
From where do we know about the Knas is pater?
Asher Shin Elihim. That it's only if the courts incriminate him. Prat l'mashias asma. If he incriminates himself, we pater.
But don't children only collect by the muhsik? Like with the father's machzik, the money?
You're saying by the ishta, like by enodem, he's a Yerush Ishta, not by Ro, I mean, right. But here by the kids, the second. this is the Gemara learns that Shrach Na'udim Lavi, whatever she makes is owned by the father.
No, I know that, but it's not collected yet.
Right, so but it doesn't have to be. It's money that's owed. It's like hezek or any money if you work somewhere, so that money is automatically owed. It doesn't depend on the court deciding it. It's owed.
Have to be muksuk, it doesn't have to be.
So the father automatically gets that right. And Rashi just says, what's the case of actually gavsam mitzia? That doesn't make sense. The Gemara is going to address. You told me that her earnings or her mitzia, that even though she didn't collect it, the father dies, it goes to the brother. Where do you have collecting by a mitzia? A mitzia is either you got it or you didn't get it. It's not like someone owes you a mitzia. The Gemara is going to address that question. But the Gemara says, the Gemara says, what are you teaching me in this halacha of our Mishnah? Tanina, we already learned our Mishnah essentially on Daf Yomi Testament out. The Mishnah already told me that Hamafata is someone that seduces nice and shlosh. The Ram gives 3 things. Boin is someone who violates the goal, gives arbal, gives 4. And the Mishnah explained Hamafata nice and boish begam. Kanasi has to give the 3 things of shame and deficiency and of penalty. The oinus has to add on shlosh and the tzar gives the tzar. So isn't that what we learned about opening words of our Mishnah? What's our Mishnah adding up? So the Gemara says lavia itztuchaleh. What it didn't say in that Mishnah on the previous parak was that these things go to the father. It said that she gets this, but who gets it? Our Mishnah is saying it goes to the father. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Lavinam pshita. I don't need a Mishnah to tell me that that's a svara. Of course it goes to the father. How do I know it goes to the father? From the fact that you tell me that by the mafata, he has to give the 3 payments of kanash boys of begam. Obviously it goes to the father. You know why? Tila asma is going to herself. Amayohiv mafata. Why would the seducer have to pay up? Midaita ovid. She does it with her own consent, so she's meichelet him. Of course, he wouldn't have to pay. That's what consensual means. I'm agreement. You don't owe me anything. It's only the father who, like the Gemara said in the previous paragraph, how could she be meichel tear my garment and the father's garment? It's not hers. So that wouldn't be the chiddush of Mishnah. Of course, we know it goes to the father. Rather, the badin is what we needed from our Mishnah we didn't have in the previous paragraph was if, let's say, there was a court case, the father died before collection, which is plukta de Rabbi Shimon Rabbanon, if it goes to her or goes to the father. That's what we didn't say in the previous parak, and that's what we're leading up by saying that there are these payments which go to the father. And however, when this death happened between Amad Bedin, between the court case and the collection, that's the machlekes that we didn't know from the previous parak, Rabbi Shimon Rabbanon, that is going to go to herself or to her father. Now the Gemara starts a new discussion that will ultimately lead back to the halacha of our Mishnah. It's not awesome. We learned about the Mishnah Masechta Shavuos as follows: Anasto opasita esbiti. If a guy points a finger at a guy and he says, "Look, you raped, you seduced my daughter." Boimer says, "Name, loy anasti, beloy patisi." Says, "I didn't do this. I didn't violate. I didn't seduce your daughter." So he says, "Mashbiachani, I make you take an oath." He says. He answers okay in the affirmative, so he basically swore. And then later on, the criminal break down and he admits. He says, "Yeah, I did it." So chayiv, what's he liable for? He's liable for the principal, and for what the actual liability is for being a ma'anis or mafata. Added 5th, and a carbon asham if he subsequently admits. That's what's called asham. The asham gezelis, meaning to say that you're stealing what you really owe from another person by denying. That's what he's chayiv to the father of the girl. That's what the Tanakh holds. Shimon says, no, you're exempt. Why? Because you don't pay a penalty based on your own words. It has to be based on witnesses. Now, since if he would have admitted in front of us, when they petitioned, when they claimed he would have been exempt, so when he denies also, you can't call it an oath of denial of money. Because it's not a denial of money. I'm not stealing anything. I could have said yes and you wouldn't have had anything on me. So the fact that I swore falsely is not going to be mechayev me in this halacha of korban shvur. That's the machlekes on the comment of Rishon. Now, Amrullah said to Rishon, wait a second. You're only partly right. Even though he doesn't pay the penalty based on his own words, so you want to say it's not a denial of monies to be chayav korban shvur, but that's only part of the picture. But if you admitted to the rape, you'd be exempt from the biblical penalty of knas. But there's still shame, there's still pagam, which is mammon. So it comes out that you did deny money, which later on the Gemara is going to explain at the end of the daf. The reason of the Rabbana is that they hold that in general, when someone's claiming, Anasta, you raped my daughter, he's only claiming the baishas and the pagam. And therefore, this guy's not swearing regarding the denial of the knas, to be exempt with his admission, to say that, oh, I really wasn't denying any money because I could have admitted and I would have been exempt anyway. No, as we'll explain at the end of the daf, but the Rabban is saying that what was being claimed was the baishas of begam, and therefore that is mammon, and therefore that is denial, because if you would have been mighty, you would have been chayiv, you would not have been pat. Okay, that's the mission of Mesechus Shavuos. Continues the Gemara as follows. Abai asks from Rabbi Bar Nachmani, who is his Rebbe, the following question. Someone says to his friend, Anasto opasitas biti, you raped, you seduced my daughter. And, interesting case, and not only that, I took you to court. And you actually owed me money. He's saying a whole story happened. Boy, man, the friend says, what are you talking about? He's saying lahadam. What are you talking about? I never raped, I never seduced your daughter. We never had a court case. I didn't owe you any money. He swears to the fact. And then he admits, says it's true, everything was true. I lied through the whole story. So ask Abai from Rabbi's house. Lidab Shimon Mai. According to Rabbi Shimon, what's the halacha? So it discusses why we ask specific according to Rabbi Shimon. Really the question is according to everyone. The Rabban agreed to Rabbi Shimon. If you're explicitly claiming just the knas, it's negay for the end of the sugi really, that we'll see it's specifically regarding Rabbi Shimon's shita. But be that as it may, the following question is like this. Since ultimately the way the story turned out, there really was already a court case once before. And therefore, had he admitted to us that this story happened, that he had seduced, and there was a court case, and he was liable, if he had agreed to the story of the plaintiff, he would obviously have to pay because the first court already incriminated him based on witnesses. Now the question is Mamayna Havya? So do we say that he's denying money, carbon shiur, and therefore he's going to be liable for a carbon for the false oath that he took regarding what he really owes? Or maybe no. Although he already had a court case once before, and if he would admit he would have to be liable for that payment, but even so, he's not going to be liable for his denial of carbon shiur. Why not? I thought it's mammon already. Yeah, but since its origin is kanas hava, it is penalty. The Torah did not hold you liable for carbon shiur, only, as you will shortly see, things regarding like a deposit, regarding a loan, or things like that. But things that originated in a kanas, even though now technically it's mammon, but since it originated by kanas, maybe you're not going to be carbon shiur. That was a question Abai asked from Rabbah, according to Rabbi Shimon, that what you're petitioning is the penalty. So that penalty, but now maybe is a mammon now already because you already had Hamad B'din or not. So Malay, on that, Rabbah responded. It says Mammon have oh, now it's already mammon because already had a court case, already is owed. And be liable a carbon shiur. Fine, but the problem is Esvei. Now, by asked Rabbah in the following price. Shimon says, Yochel, you would think, if someone says to his friend, Onasto pasites biti, you seduced my daughter. Boy, when he says, I did not do that. Or similar case. Hey, your ox gored my slave, and you owe me 30 silver coins. Boy, says, I didn't kill it. Or his slave tells him, hey, buddy, you knocked out my teeth, you blinded my eye, which the biblical law is, if you did that to a slave, it's get out of jail free. Now, that's also a knas, because really a slave is his own money. It's like one of his donkeys. So if he can do whatever he wants to his donkeys, he can do whatever he wants to his slaves, but there's a biblical penalty. If you knock out teeth or eye, they go free. But when the master says, it's not true, I didn't knock out your teeth, I didn't blind your eye. Okay, they're all the same idea about cases of kanas. Then Nishba, and he swears falsely, but he subsequently admits, Yochel Yehechai. You would think that the person would be liable for a carbon shvuah because it's something that he owes and he's swearing falsely. No, Talmud 11 says the pasuk Yikra. What does the pasuk say? The chichesh ba'misa, and you're going to deny to your friend that you really owe him, but you're denying it. You're swearing falsely. And he gives a bunch of examples with a deposit, or with a loan, or begezel, someone that you rob, or you're holding back payment that you owe him, or you found a lost object, and you're denying that you have it. But Nishbal Shek and you swear falsely, does the pasuk that you can be chayav a korban shvuah. Oh, says the Braisam, Reb Shimon. Okay, ma'elu. So we have to compare. These are the biblical prototypes. That the miyuchadim, they're distinction mammon, that their money, their monetary objects that were originally origin is money. Of course, mammon. Also, anything that's mammon. Yatsu elu, that excludes other cases. These cases that we're saying over here in the Brisa Shin Kanas, which they are penalties. So the Gemara Ketizim and Basin says this is a bias kasha. My love, isn't it? He asked Rabba, isn't it even Bisha Amad Bedin? Even if they already went once to a court, and witnesses in that court came and they testified and they incriminated this person based on the rulings of the court, and now this person again is claiming him what the court already had held him liable, and now he's going and he's denying that. And the Bryce is telling us from Rabbi Shimon that you're going to be potter, that is not considered mammon, even after that there was a mother bedin. So that's not like what you said, Rabbi. Rabbi, you said that the whole story that if this happened, that he took him to court, and etc., that of course then you can come true because he's denying mammon. Seemingly the Bryce is telling us, not like that, that even if there was a mother bedin, you're still going to be potter. Says Rabbi, Loi, no, what are you talking about? B'shaloi amad bedin. The Bryce is talking about when they didn't have a court case yet. And the witnesses didn't testify, so it's knas. And therefore you're going to be potter. But if you already have the court case, then of course you'd be chayav. On that, Abaya asked, wait a second. From the Dereisha, if the first part of the Brisa, which refers to the statement of the Rabbana, that disagree with Rabbi Shimon, and they actually hold that you can be chayav a carbon shvuah, if they're talking about b'shamad bedin, when there was already a court case, that we can infer that Seifa Nami, in other words, the teachings of Reb Shimon, who is the second half of the Brisa, that he's coming to disagree with the Rabbanon, must be talking about the same type of case. So the Gemara explains, if that's B'Shamad Bedin, where do we see that the Reisha is Amad Bedin? Because Gitani Reisha. We learned in the Reisha, mainly, I would only know that you can be liable for the principal and the fifth and the carbon Hashem Dvarim, only things Shemesham Aleim Sakeren, that you're paying regarding the principal, but Tashumi Kefil, the doubling when you're caught having stolen, or Tashuma Baba Chamisha, when you have to pay 4 or 5 times if you stole an ox or a sheep and you slaughtered it or you sold it, or if someone seduces or violates a young girl, or Moitzi Shemra, or he spreads false rumors regarding his new wife. Minayin, how would you know that the same halacha would apply? That is going to be you're misappropriating, which that's riba. That's coming to include, that's the pasuk over there by the carbon shvuah, that you're swearing falsely. Riba, it's extra terminology, coming to include even these cases that you can be chayav a carbon shvuah. Now, zok the Gemara, zok the Abayit Rabba, hechadam. What's this case in the Brisa talking about? Idoloi amad bedin, if they weren't taken to court yet, kfela mi'ikah? What type of kefil are you talking about? Who said he stole that you're petitioning the kefil? It's only once we incriminate him that we can make kefil. Moreover, maybe he's going to be maida and he'll be potter. So, Elab Shita, obviously when the Rabbana, including kefil and Dal Hey and Mefate, that's going to be including the halacha of Kabbalah, must be Kashamat Bedin, that he already had a court case. So the Reisha B'Shamat Bedin, if the teachings of the Rabbana is someone that you already had a court case, so Seifa Nami must be the Seifa also, where Reb Shimon is saying you can be potter, is B'Shamad Bedin, when you already had a court case, and Rashi just points out, the words of Reb Shimon are Yatsu Ilushin Knas. What do you mean? It's not Knas. It's Mammon already, because you already had a Mad Bedin. The Gemara is going to explain later on, it just means She'ikar and Knas, that the origin is from Knas. But one thing is Abai is asking on Abba, you would tell me in Rabbi Shimon's opinion that once you have a mother bedin, and then subsequently that guy denies the hamad bedin, and he goes to another court and he says la hadam never happened. He's going to be chayiv kavan shvu because mammon. See clearly in this braysa, in the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, that it's already after hamad bedin, and no, he's potter. It's not mammon. He's going to be exempt from a carbon shvu for having sworn falsely to let himself off the hook, and then he subsequently admits. You see that he's going to be potter, and you're saying he's going to be chayav because it's already mammon. So Rabbi said to his student Abai, he said, look, the truth is, I could answer you like this. I could tell you, Reisha, that the first part of the Brisa, which is the teaching of the Rabbanan, is B'shamad B'din. Like we said, there must have been, there was already a court case. That's why you're going to be chayav kavan shvuah for denial of kef and all those other things. And B'seif, I could tell you, is B'shloime B'din, when there's no court case yet. And that's why Rabbi Shimon says, you're going to be potter. Because if it was a mother bedin, you're right, you would be chayav. And Bakul Rabbi Shimon. That's how I can answer. It's not. You're right. It's not Rabbanan and Rabbi Shimon. There's only Rabbi Shimon. There's no Tanakam over here. And the Shalom Yisrael makes sense exactly like what I taught you. If there's a mother bedin, which I told you, then this moment, and when there's no hamad bedin, then it's a classic knas and you can be potter. But it's like he's saying, the Lam is saying, really, I can tell you this, but I'm not going to give you a derech teretz. I'm not going to give you a pushed answer. And the reason is because if that was really the case, then Amritli, you're going to tell me, so that's when you learn with Rillah, he tells you what you're going to tell him. So I'm not going to give you a derech, but then you're going to tell me that even listening to Yesha should have said in the beginning of the Bryce, Rabbi Shimon Oimer, that it's all Rabbi Shimon. Or you listen, you say, well, the end should say, Div Rabbi Shimon, that these are the words of Rabbi Shimon. What's the difference in the middle of the Bryce? Are you saying Rabbi Shimon Oimer in the middle? So I'm not going to tell you that derech teretz, because you're going to tell me like this. Ella, you know what I'll tell you? As follows, says Rabbah. Kula b'shamad b'din. The whole Bryce is told about that there was already a court case. And Reisha B'Shimon, and you're right, so the Reisha of the Reisha Rabbanan. So the Reisha Rabbanan makes sense, because once it's already Hamad B'din, so it says already moment, so they hold you can have a common shvuah. And for Sefer B'Shimon, says it's going to be B'Shimon. So wait a second. Sefer B'Shimon, we're back to the question. Rabbah had said that La'ach Hamad B'din is Momen, and the Bryce is saying, after Hamad B'din Rabbi Shimon, you're going to be potter. How do we resolve that? Says Abaye Medina Love, I agree to you in the carbon shvuah. Regarding the carbon of the shvuah, but according to Rabbi Shimon, even though there was Hamad B'din, you're not going to be chayav a carbon shvuah because it's not mammon. Why not? Why isn't it mammon? I'll tell you, there's a difference. Because the Rachmana Patre, the Torah exempts you from v'chichish. Meaning, the pasuk that we brought, what's called v'chichish b'misai, in Talmudic terminology, they like quoting one word, and that from that one word you should know, plus mezok, plus meretzah. V'chichish means the ganze pasuk v'chichish b'misai. When you go through the pasuk v'chichish b'misai, what are the examples that it talks about by carbon shvuah? Pakadlin, tzumas yad, gezel, oshek, aveda. Those are things that are miyuchadim, that their mammon, their origin is mammon. They're not in korei knas. They don't originate from penalty. They originate from monies. Oh, that you're right. Rabbi Shimon would agree, even la'ach hamad b'din you're going to be potter because it didn't originate from money. It originated from knas, even though now technically it's money because you already had hamad b'din. But b'chika min ha'mammon, when did I say, to answer your question, that it's going to be money? That was regarding a different halacha. That was lahirishay lebanov. That was to bequeath it to his son. Meaning, if they had a court case and the father died before they had a chance to collect, then it belongs to the brothers and not to her. That's why I was saying that it's going to be considered mammon. But regarding carbon shvuah, no, the Torah is telling you explicitly it has to be something that originated from monetary claim, like a deposit. Can't be something that originated from kanas, even though now technically it should be like money, like we see regarding lahirish labana. Problem is Esrei. Now this is where it relates back to halacha Mishnah. The Gemara asks, we said in our Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon says, "Emloyes speak a ligvois." If, and this was explicit what Rabbi Shimon was disagreeing with Tanakam in our Mishnah, he said that even if they had a court case, if the father did not get a chance to collect from the rapist, until the father died, it says it goes to herself. The problem is, if you're going to say, Mammon have it, it's money, to bequeath it to his sons, the moment you had the court case, then why is it going to herself? The Achin Boy Mahava has to go to the brothers. How could Rabbi Shimon, who we're discussing, say it goes to ourselves? So Rabbi said, oh, I get the kasha. Hi, Milsa Kashoy, but Rabbi Yisrael, and again, this was Rabbi who was explaining this opinion. Rabbi says that Rabbi and Yisrael were bothered with this question. 22 years. Now, what's significant about the number 22? The significance of the number 22 was that's the years that Rabbi was the Rosh Hashiva, as the Gemara tells in the end of Masechtas Brachas. Then Rabbi died, and Rabbi Yosef became the Nai Rosh Hashiva. And for 22 years, Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef couldn't answer this question, how to understand this. How could we resolve this interpretation of the opinion of Rabbi Shimon regarding how we resolve what he says in our Mishnah regarding why is it going to ourselves and not going to the brothers? Well, if it wasn't answered, and the Yosef Rabbi Yosef appeared until Rabbi Yosef became the Rosh Hashiva, and he answered it. Which Rashi tells us from Shemayim they helped him to answer this question to become renowned, because Rabbah, the previous Rosh Hashiva, was very sharp. And that's why they called him Ikar, he was uprooting mountains, the Greis Lamdim. If Yosef knew all the teachings, the Mishnayos, the Brais, and never they called him Sinai, where he was like as if he heard it from Sinai, but it wasn't this Greis Lamdim, and people would be like, okay, it's the yeshiva's changing already, it's losing its analysis. So from Shemayim they gave him the ability to answer this question when he became Rosh Hashiva. He has a big shiur klali, and he's like, wow. So he answered this. There's Shami Hasam, Vir. What's Vir? Vir by Oynes Mafata. Now, halacha about Mishnah is different. Because we said, after Mother Bedin, Reb Shimon agrees it's Mammon. That was what Rabbi's whole teaching was to say. It just said about Korban Shvu, he held that it's not going to be because of Vachichesh, and those are the examples. But you told me after Mother Bedin it's Mammon. So how in our Mishnah could Reb Shimon say that if you didn't collect yet, it's not money lahirish labana? It says it's exeres hakasam. The Amakro, because the pasuk says b'nosan isha sheichel that the man who labored is going to give lavi hanaida to the father of the girl 50 kesef, 50 silver coins. What is the Torah telling us? Loi zichsa Torah la'ab. The Torah has not merited to the father ela mishas nasina, only from the time of the giving, because it says b'nosan. And then that's Lavi Anaida. When did Rabbi say that's considered money to bequeath to his sons once there's already a court case? That was Bishar Knossos. That was regarding all other penalties, where once you had a Mad Bedin, you can't exempt yourself anymore with admission. So that's money. Oh, it's money? So then that's going to be, even though it's Ikar and Knas, that's going to be Moedish Labanav. There's a unique Gizedes HaKosev, the Bitoy by Unis and Mafata, that needs v'nosan. The problem is, says the Gemara, if that's the case, that you tell me the word v'nosan changes everything. So it can be evident. What do you do regarding a slave? The Chsiv, it says about of 30 silver coins you give to his master. Here also, you tell me the Torah did not merit for the master. Only when it's given, because it says yitin, and that's true that you're telling me that. Even if the Lord had a court case with his slave, and then something happens, that then he wouldn't get it because he's not there at the time of the Gevaina of the collection? Says no, because yitin l'chud v'nasan l'chud. Those are different words. As Rashi explains, the word that it says by Eved, yitin, is a continuous command, and that's always that you should give it to the master. The problem is v'nasan lavi anayra by Oynis Mavata. That sounds like something that was already given. V'nasan lavi anayra. Yitain is continuous. V'nasan and give is like a past tense, something that was already given. It's only from the Shas Gevaina, from the collection, that it's considered Lavianayra. But if the father dies before collection, it's not going to go to the sons. In contrast, by an Eved, that's Yitain, you're always going to give it to the master. Yeah, if the master would die, the sons would still get it. That is Morish Labanav in the case of Eved. The Gemara says, but if that's the case, that you're telling me the Knasa of Aynis Mafata is different from other knasses. That even if you had the court case, as you explained the halacha of our Mishnah and the Rabbi Shimon, that is not considered mammon because it's b'nasan, then I have the following question for you. Why did the Gemara explain that the reason why you're going to be exempt from the Korban Shvuah in the case of Aynis Mavata is because of the Chichesh, just like you're learning for other knasses? In other words, from the fact that you cannot compare it to Tzumas Yad 2 alone. Because there, the origin is Mammon. In contrast to all these other cases. And one of them was Oinus Mafata. That you include with Kefil, Naldehe, and all these things are not, they don't originate in monetary liability, they're Knesses. What do you mean? Even now it's not Mammon. Because the Torah tells you, B'nasan, that you didn't get the rights until the Shas and the Sina. So why are you telling me Tamalim of Chichish to exclude the halacha of Oinus Mafata? Tamalim B'nasan Neboile. What says V'chichish? Not V'chichish. It's not like all other Knesses. It's even Achamad B'din is not yours. Because it says B'nasan. So why are you learning how to exclude the halacha of Korban Shvuah for Oinus Mavatas and Mechichas like all the other cases of Knesses? What do you mean Oinus Mavatas is even more than that? We learn it from B'nasan. Even if you had Achamad B'din that it's Mammon, it's still not Mammon regarding Oinus Mavatas because it has to be given. So why are you learning that from Mechichas? So Rabbi says, I'll tell you. Ki yitzchak Mechichas. When do you need Bechichish to the Knas of Oinus Mafata? To learn it out together with all the other Knesses to exempt the Korban Shvuah from Bechichish, because the origin is from Knas, and you're not learning out from B'nasan? It's a specific case. You're right, of course you know from B'nasan, which is even the bigger Chiddush Oinus Mafata. But, Amda Bedin Ubagra. It's talking about where they already had the court case, and she became a Begetter. She became 12 and a half. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's hers. How do we know that? Just like he disagrees in the Mishnah, if she didn't get a chance to collect, if he didn't get a chance to collect until the father died, it goes to the daughter. Here also he would differentiate, he would disagree if he didn't get a chance to collect before she became a begettes. It's the same thing. Tanakama says it goes to the father. It would go to herself. Now, if, it's a little bit of a complex case, but if Umesa, so again, what happened was, they had a court case, the girl became a begettes. We say when she becomes a begettes, she is removed from the father's domain. You didn't have a Nasan Avihanari yet. Now, if the father died, that's what we were saying all along. That was the case, that it wouldn't go to the brothers, because the father didn't get it yet. It would go to her. The father didn't die. But if you recall in the Mishnah, we had two types of cases that remove us from the father's rights. Either he dies, or she becomes a begettes. So what happens if, let's say, they had a court case, he didn't die, but she became a begettes. So the father's removed. And it wasn't his yet, because even though it was a mother bedin, but shtik ba'in zimfad, the benasa has to be given.
But the Mishnah says you need both.
No, it's either one. We had two types of cases of emat shalom amda bedin or amda bedin, one by mace ha'av or by bagra. Either one is going to remove her from the father's domain. Whether he dies, then the brother's not going to get it, or if she becomes a begettes. But now what gets interesting is like this, the case continues. Umesa, now she dies. There, the halacha is the hasam over there. Kika yaras avia, when her father is inheriting her, minod didoko yaras. He's inheriting it from her, and therefore what's interesting is it's full-fledged money. Even though it didn't reach to the girl's hand, because regarding her self, there's no difference from other knasses. The moment, this is very interesting. Every knas we said, that was Rabban Omen Aleph, that was the main discussion, I kept asking questions. Every knas, the moment you have a Moed Medin, it's already money. There's no more, you can't be Moed Knas, like Rashi had explained. The reason why knas live in the moment, why it's not moment, Lohirish Labana, why is the money, what do you mean, it's rights that they have? Like he can be Moed Knas, you put it, so you have nothing on me. After the court case, okay, you already, Aiden already came, you're already liable, there's no way out. So, after Moed Medin is already moment. Regarding the father, there's a unique Izedus HaKasav of a Nosan Aviyanayda. It's only his after the Nesina. But that's only if it's getting his straight away. But when she becomes a Begettes, he's out of the picture. But then when she dies, he's getting it from her. Now, her rights after Moed Medin is regular classic money like all other Knasses. So when she dies, he merits everything that she had. So therefore, from Benasan, you wouldn't be able to exempt the Korban Shvuah because there's no Benasan over here. And therefore, the Gemara had to bring it from Bechichish. The reason why we exempt from Korban Shvuah is because the Ikach is Kanas. that's the case that we have to say that even by Einz Mafata that you can be exempt from Kamen Shvuah because of V'chichesh, not because of V'nasan. There's no V'nasan over here. The father, his rights over here is not from V'nasan. It's from V'chichesh, meaning it's from a regular momentness of Knas that he's yashining from her. That's where we need V'chichesh. Then the Gemara says a question on that. It says, if that's the case, that you're explaining to me that there was already Hamad B'din, and it was hers because she was a begettes, and if it's Mammon, and he's getting it from her, how can you say Yatsa Elosh and Kanas? How can you say we're excluding all these cases that are Kanas? But what do you mean, Mammon who? Not Kanas, Mammon. We had Hamad B'din. Says the Gemara, words that we were saying all along really, Yatsa Elosh Kanas. You're right, not Knas so much, really Mammon, but the source, the origin was Knas. They're not included in the Chichesh, Ba'amisai, of Pekodin, the Tzumes Yah, because it's not, the origin was not that of money. But Esra, the Gemara asks, from that same Mishnah in Shavuos that we started off with. We said in the Mishnah in Shavuos, so Shimon plates it. Shimon says, someone says, no, not true. I didn't violate your daughter. And we didn't have this whole story. Then he agrees. Oh, you can be put from a carbon shul. Why? Because you don't pay a penalty based on your own words, and therefore you could have made yourself potter. The fact that you swore falsely, there was no mammon that you were denying, and therefore you're going to be exempt. Says the Gemara, the reason is because there was no court case, and had he admitted, he would have been exempt. Obviously, the reason that Shimon is because if he would have admitted, he would have been exempt, and so that halach is obviously only if he didn't have a court case yet. That's why Shimon is saying that. What do you mean? How could I be chayv a cover true swearing falsely for something? If I would have admitted, I would have been potter. How can I be mechayv? So that's only obviously without hamad b'din. Because if you had hamad b'din, ha'amad b'din, obviously the mishal b'yatzmai, where you would pay based on your own words. Which that was actually the next part of the Gemara we had on Amad Aleph. So carbon shavua not mechayv. So obviously you would be chayv a carbon shavua also. Wait a second. So that's not like what we said that you can be potter from a carbon shavua even after hamad b'din. You told me that you can be potter from a carbon shavua even after hamad b'din because of ikarin is knas. What do you mean? Sounds like that from that Mishnah Masechet Shavuos that the reason why Shimon says you're potter is only because you're not paying a knas on your own words. But if you would be, which achamad b'din, then you would be chayav carbon shavua. But that contradicts what we said that no, Rabbi Shimon is saying that you always potter for carbon shavua, even after hamad b'din, because the ikarin is knas, the origin is knas. So are you chayav carbon shavua or you're not? Achamad b'din seems to be a contradiction. Says the Gemara, it's not difficult. Because Reb Shimon the Devrim did a bunch of this teaching of this Mishnah Shavuos we just quoted, was Reb Shimon going according to the opinion of the Rabban, as follows. He was saying essentially this: "Let it according to me, even though there was a court case. Yeah, the Torah exempts you from carbon shavua mebechichesh. It says mebechichesh v'amisoi, where it was only specified in the pasuk things that the ikir, the origin is money, and any is not the origin is money. You're going to be potter, even though it's already after Hamad B'din. According to you, at least admit to me, where there was no court case. When the person is petitioning, it's a little bit complicated because we got off a little bit over here. We asked a question from a different Mishnah, which wasn't the same theme. But from there we were asking, it seems to be that if it was after Hamad B'din, that you wouldn't be able to have what he's saying, She'in Misham Kanas Al Piyatzma, you would be Misham Piyatzma after Hamad B'din, that you really can't have Karm Shavuot. Now the Gemara explained that Mishnah, saying, no, you're reading that Mishnah wrong. That Mishnah is Reb Shimon going according to the opinion of the Rabban. So according to me, like we were quoting up at this point, no, you'd be part of Karm Shavuot even if you already had Hamad B'din. Because that's V'chichesh, that's what we just explained, even by Einis and Mafata. Certain times you'll need V'chichesh, where even if it's Mammon already. But since he covers Kanas, yeah, you'll be part. But he's saying according to you, at least admit to me, where if you didn't have a court case yet, and this is really what we started off the daf with, which we explained from Rashi, that's the dispute between Shimon and the Rabbanan, the chika tava, that when you're being teveya, and again that was really the opening mission of the Masechet that really didn't even have so much to do with our daf. We had the question of Abaya from Rabbah after that Mishnah. But that was the guy. He said you seduced, and not the case where he tells him, oh, and we took you to court, etc., etc. No, just that he claims you seduced my daughter, and he says no, and he's nishba b'hay. The question was, is Michayev Knas, is he Michayev the Korban Shvuah or not? Shimon says, what do you mean? It's Knas. How can you have Korban Shvuah? So the Gemara is explaining, he's saying that to the Rabbanan. Saying, me? Forget about in Misham Knas Miyasa. Even if it would be Misham the Knas Miyasa, because Achmad B'din, you would still be part because he covered is Knas. He's saying to the Rabbanan like this. But according to you, at least admit to me, when there was no court case, when the person is claiming money, when the guy's telling another guy, you seduced my daughter, what is he essentially saying? Shouldn't say Knasa Katala. He's petitioning the biblical penalty of 50 silver coins, and therefore, as Titam and Megil Madal, what Rav Shimon was saying was, if you admit to a Knas, you're going to be Potter. So he's only petitioning the Knas, and on that is what he's swearing, and therefore, since if he would admit in front of us, he wouldn't pay. So when he's denying it, you're not denying money because the guy could be Potter, and therefore that's not a mamonis. So why you have a Korban Shvuah? No, Kikotava, when the guy is claiming petitioning this guy, he's claiming the Baishas in the Begam. And therefore, that's mammon. So that you would be Mishal Piyatzman, and therefore you are denying money, and therefore you are Chayv Korban Shvuah. Says the Gemara, what do they disagree about? So this is where the Gemara ends. Amr Papi says, I'll tell you what. Shimon holds it's a psychological principle. Shimon holds a person will not leave something that has a set amount, like a knas of 50 silver coins. But tell the middle kids he's going to go ahead and try to claim something that doesn't have a set amount. I don't know how much price the is going to be. It's going to be $10, it's going to be $100. I don't know what it's going to be. It depends on Hamavayish, Hamizbayish, and Begam, how much he sold to the Shifcha, how much he brought with the slave. So therefore, a person, if he's claiming, he's going to claim something definitive, which are 50 silver coins. That's what he's claiming. That you cannot be chad. You can't be shvu on that. What you're denying is knas, not moment. But no, he said the Rabban say punkt fakir. A person will not leave something that, if you admit to loy mifter, that you wouldn't be exempt, you wouldn't be let off the hook, which is bais regam. But tavim midi dechi mifter. A person will not claim something that, if he admits in court, says, yeah, chabis katan, you're going to be potter. Of course, he's not going to claim the knas. He's going to claim the only bais regam because you admit, yes, so pay up. So therefore, that's the machlekes of Shimon and the Rabbanon, and regarding what are we presuming is the claim of the person. Are we presuming his claim is the knas, because it's midi the kids is a set amount, and therefore Shimon says that's what he's claiming. So you can't be chayv korban shvuah on that, because that if you would be mighty, you'd be potter. So I wasn't denying any money, because what am I denying? I could have admitted I didn't potter. Rabban held that no. You're claiming baisha begam, because that's something that the guy can be let off the hook. If you're denying that, that's mammon, and then we're going to be chayv korban shvuah. So again, we ended. It's funny. We ended the daf on what we started, which is both are really not the main point of the daf. We started with that Mishnah just because it was like a Shimon, and we got that discussion. But really, the daf was really about the middle, which was about this other halacha regarding ikar and knas, regarding this idea that knas after Amad B'din becomes like a mammon. So therefore, we said regarding Leirisha Labanov said Rabba, yes, it's going to go to the sons after Amad B'din, even according to Rabbi Shimon. But regarding korban shvuah, you're going to be pater because of a nasan. And it's not going to be even the sons, lahirish labanov even, because of a nasan. It has to first go to the father's hand. But we said there's going to be a case that you learn that from Bechichesh, when the father's getting it from the daughter and then it's going to his sons. That's where you're going to need it from Bechichesh, where even though it's mamon lahirish labanov, but it's still not something ikarin knas. That's why we said Bechichesh is a unique halacha. It has to be ikarin mamon. It can't be ikarin knas. And then again, we ended off where we started, which is really something secondary, which is nothing to do with Hamad B'din, just in general. And the guy's claiming Nasta B'sitas Biti, we only brought that in because the wordings seem to have contradicted what we were saying, the premise, that after Hamad B'din it's Mammon, and therefore you give me Chayv Korban Shvuah, that it sounds like, and you told me you put even after Hamad B'din, the words of Reb Shimon in that Mishnah sounds like no. Afterwards then you would be Chayv Korban Shvuah. But that we said no, that was only L'Divrem D'Rabban Kamalu. But according to him, no, you get part of Korban Shvuah even after Hamad B'din because he covered his kanas. According to the Rabban, he's saying, but at least admit to me there's a difference before Hamad B'din. If you didn't have Hamad B'din, what the person be today is kanas, and therefore that's something. Even you're going to get the hold that it's mammon after Hamad B'din, before and it's kanas, and therefore you should be potter from a Korban Shvuah. And they said no, because what the guy was claiming was not kanas. What he was claiming was the baishas and begam. Thank you to anything.